Hello, I'm Amy Schmidt, and I am so pleased to be here with you today. And before I start my presentation, I want to give a big shout out and a big high five to the incredible Olga, who has put together this ultimate midlife makeover summit. Just those words alone are inspiring. And I'm so pleased to be able to be sharing this space with 13 other incredible women to inspire you and to challenge you at a time in our life that does create some challenge, but it also creates opportunity. Like I always say, midlife is not a crisis, it's an opportunity. So let's get started. I'm Amy Schmidt. I am a podcaster and author and a public speaker, and I am so pleased to be with you today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules, because I know everybody has a million balls in the air, just like we do all do as women. So I'm going to start today's presentation with you taking a time to just self-reflect. And what I mean by that is just take yourself back to when you were 10 years old on a hot summer day, whatever that would be for you. Now, I remember those hot summer days heading to the public pool. It was my favorite place to be, and I would meet my friends, and I can remember actually kicking off my flip-flops before I even got in the gate. As soon as I had sunscreen on, I was ready to head over to the diving boards. And I would do that between a run and a walk, it was like a shuffle. It was the kind that would get the lifeguard's attention to say, slow down, but it wasn't a stop running. You remember that. And I would get in line with my friends, and I would always go in line at the high dive, even though I was a little scared of heights. So I would wait in line and I would become antsy, and then finally it was my time in the queue, and there I'd be looking up about 10 rungs up to the top of that ladder, and I'd be climbing up. I can still feel that metal in my hands and those rungs on the bottoms of my feet. Sometimes they were so hot that I'd have to skip over one or two to get to the top. And when I got there, I would run to the edge and I would jump off and make this impressive splash. A cannonball. Remember those? When I would come up to the surface, I would look around to make sure everybody was watching. All my friends saw it because it had to be the most impressive splash. And I wasn't just going to do it once. I was going to do it again and again. Now, I want you to bring your mind to where you are right now in your journey as a midlife woman. Your story, your circumstance. And it's a hot summer day and you're heading to the pool, maybe with your kids, your grandkids, maybe by yourself. And that fearless exhilaration of that 10-year-old is stirring in your stomach. You can feel it. And you're looking at that diving board thinking, I'm going to try it. I'm going to head over there and do that. So you make your way over. And as you're standing in line, your heart starts racing a little bit more. And you finally get there. And you look up to the top and you think, wow, that's a long ways. But you start climbing and you get to that third rung and you're stuck. You're stopped. Fear has set in. There's that voice in the back of your head saying, I don't think I can do this. I am too old. What am I thinking? Or that procrastination voice. I think we've all had that, where it says, you know what, I'm just going to put this off until next year because I'll be 10 pounds slimmer and in much better shape. I'm just going to wait. Or that negative self-talk, or that fear of people judging you sets in, and you think, if I do this now and I jump off, I have to actually make my way back to the ladder and get out, and that is not going to be pretty. I'm going to wait. Have you ever had those feelings? Being stuck, not quite knowing where to go, how to get by and through that fear. You know, at midlife, it's very common for us to lose some confidence. Our bodies change. I check that box. I don't know about you ladies. Relationships change. That would be me too. We experience life-altering things such as the loss of loved ones. I've experienced that. Retirement, health issues, all of those things that are part of our journey as a midlife woman. So what are we going to do How are we going to look at these next years, at these next decades with what's possible instead of what's impossible? How are we going to start doing that? I want you to listen to these 3 words. And your takeaway from today, if there's nothing else you remember in this entire conversation, remember these 3 words. Do not resign. It's not time to throw in that resignation. There is so much more for us to do, to explore, to rediscover, to reinvent. Look at that little girl on the slide. Remember her? That fearless exhilaration? It's still there. It's still there. And today we are going to work on ways to uncover that confidence in a way that we can propel ourselves forward. Do not resign, but explore, rediscover, and reinvent. Well, how do we do that, Amy? How do we do that? I want to talk about the power of something called self-reflection. Now, you just did that 2 minutes earlier at the beginning of this talk. You self-reflected about a time a while ago when you were a kid. So I want you to think back to those accomplishments, those stories, those experiences, that knowledge that you have gained over the years to propel you forward. I recently was with a friend of mine. She's in her early 50s, and she was recently let go from her position. They went through a downsizing. She had been at the company for over 20 years. Her performance was wonderful, but her job was resolved. As she started to move forward, she knew she wanted to continue to work, and she put her resume together and started looking at jobs and looking at things that might appeal to what she does and where she can add value. She comes across a job description and it looks great. And then she reads the job requirements, managing a budget of $1 million and blah, 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 leading a team of 10, 12 people, whatever it was. And right then and there, she took herself out of the game. She removed herself before she even applied. Why? Because she didn't check all the boxes. Can you relate to that? So often we take ourselves out before we even apply. Why do we do that? One thing we don't do is really reflect on the value that we have. We don't really know our own value. And the way to get that value and realize how much value we add is by the power of self-reflection. And what I mean by that is this friend of mine, she all of a sudden started thinking and reflecting and saying, you know what? In 1997, I led that group and our budget was $1 million and we surpassed our goal. Wow, she checks that box. Oh, that's right. I led that team of 12 volunteers on that committee that I led back in 1999. Those experiences translate. Don't count yourself out before you take some time to self-reflect. I call that creating your highlight reel. And that's not just thinking back to last week, last month, or last year. That's actually sitting and spending time, that word time, carving out that time for you to put pen to paper and think back of what you've accomplished as a wife, a sister, a daughter, a mother. Maybe one of those things, maybe all of those things. But that's creating your highlight reel. So I was sitting in my office, probably about a month, 3 months probably, before I turned 49. So just a little over a year before I was going to be 50. My house was quiet. And that never happened because I'm a wife and I'm a mom with 3 kids. Now 2 have flown the nest, but 1 is still at home. But it was a quiet house and it was dull and misty outside. And I sat there and I could not figure out who I was or where I wanted to go. Have you ever experienced that? I use the analogy of standing on a road with a map and not knowing which way to go. So I started to reflect on my experiences. I was a journalist early on in my career. I went into corporate PR. I was a mom. I am a mom. I'm a wife. All of these things. And I started to become my own historian. There's so much power in your history. Think of that word alone, story. You're the keeper of your stories. And when you start looking back at what you've accomplished and what you've learned and the knowledge that you have, it motivates you. It propels you forward. So I used those gifts that I had found in my highlight reel, and I decided that I wanted to jump in on something I was really passionate about, and that was midlife women. I knew that there were so many commonalities that we share as midlife women that I needed to challenge myself to open the dialogue and inspire people to action. And how I was going to do that was by starting a podcast. Now, if you know me, I am not the most tech savvy. I didn't even listen to podcasts at that point in my journey. But you know what? Through a lot of trips to the Genius Bar and a whole lot of YouTube videos and a lot of learning and the power of Google, just alone during this summit and these speakers, how many times will you use the power of Google? I embraced lifetime learning. I became a novice. And I was about ready to launch my podcast. So here I am sitting in my office, feeling confident and thinking, you know what, I'm going to do this. My first episode was a solo cast, which would mean just me talking. And I started and I went for it. And when I finished, I took a deep breath. And I wish you could have seen me because I stood up, I high-fived myself, did a little happy dance, and thought, you know what? This is going to be the next Emmy award-winning podcast. I just know it. I just know it. And I sat back down and I went to go to look for the audio file. And you know what? It wasn't there. I had forgotten to push record. Well, what was I thinking? I was getting stuck at that third rung of the ladder. Can you relate to that, ladies, where you get stuck? You did something wrong. You made a mistake. You goofed up. It wasn't perfect. Those feelings of self-doubt, certainly they set in for me, thinking, what in the world am I thinking to do a podcast when I can't even remember to push record? Well, you know what? Right at that moment, I had this feeling. And you know what I said to myself? I said, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to learn from this experience. And now hundreds of interviews later, I've learned, I've grown. I pushed myself through and got unstuck. Ladies, it's so easy to be stuck, right? But you know what? There's actually greatness in being stuck because it realizes that you have the power to get unstuck and there's something so much greater and so much bigger for you out there. Use that power of self-reflection. Use those experiences, those stories, that knowledge to propel you forward. Next, we're going to talk about self-reliance because this is so important as we age, trusting ourselves, being brave, letting go of our safety net. And that's not so easy, right? This picture here, it's funny. This happens to be a trip. I lived in Europe for a while with my family, and we were very fortunate because every February there was something called a ski break. And if you're European listening, you can relate. And every year we would travel with friends and we would ski and take a holiday. This particular year, we went to the Dolomites in Italy, which is just a fabulous spot. I still pinch myself when I think about the opportunities that I was given. I'm so grateful. And one day, I think it was about the third day in, we were sitting at breakfast and we traveled with friends and the kids were all talking and the adults were all skiers. And to be honest with you, I was the weakest link. That happens. That happens. If you read my book, you'll find a little bit more out about when I'm the weakest link. But I'm the weakest skier as far as I can ski. I really like hot chocolate and apple strudel more than skiing, but I ski. But I could hear the undertone was, we really want to go to this place, but I'm not sure Amy can do it. You know, I heard it. And I said to myself, you know what, you guys go do this. They were going to ski the Black Diamonds and be crazy. And you know what? I needed to trust my instincts and rely on myself and say, you know what, I'm going to do something else. And I made my way over to the reception desk, and I'll keep the story short, but I have to tell you, the gentleman standing behind the reception desk was a beautiful Italian man named Giuseppe, and I kid you not, that was his name. As I reached for a biscotti in this gorgeous bowl that was sitting there next to the sign-up sheet, Giuseppe said, "Hello, buongiorno, would you like to join me on a snowshoeing adventure today?" I kind of looked around, and I was the only one standing there. Had biscotti in hand and thought, oh boy, I could do one of two things. I could go to the spa for the day and do a little self-care, or I could take on this adventure and be brave. So that's what I did. I trusted my instincts and I was brave. Think about a time when you were brave, when you stepped outside of your comfort zone. You didn't follow everyone else. You did what was best for you at that time, removed the safety net, and propelled yourself forward. I want to challenge you around something because I'm talking a lot about finding your value within yourself. This challenge is a little awkward, I'm not going to lie, but it's a challenge that you really will be able to self-reflect and learn something about yourself. I want you to find that friend, that anchor, that person in your life that knows you the best on those good days and on those not so good days. And I want you to ask them these questions. Why did you choose me as your friend? How am I adding value to your life? Okay, I told you, awkward. When I did this with a friend of mine, I'll never forget because she said, Amy, seriously, I've known you for 20 years. Of course you know why I'm your friend. But when you get to that point in that conversation with your friend, dig a little deeper, just a little deeper. Awkward? Absolutely. But you know what you learn from that by listening and absorbing that feedback is so valuable. It shows you why people trust you and value you. And that's a way of honoring yourself, and in turn will propel you forward. Self-affirmations. I wanted to talk briefly about self-affirmations because I think it's so important when you're building your confidence, when your confidence might have been pushed aside or hidden. The power of self-affirmations. Negative self-talk. Give me an amen if there's been some negative self-talk in your life. As midlife women, we look in the mirror and we say, what? When did that happen? When did that happen? You know what I mean. How about my company's going through a downsizing? I know I'm going to be the one let go. Or it's flu season. I just got the flu shot, but I know I'm going to get sick. Those are those negative self-talk things that get into our mind and they stay there. And as midlife women, they sound so loud, don't they? They just want us to stop, to create this fear. But we have to put those aside. You know, I was in on a talk a couple of years ago and I heard this brilliant statement. You cannot talk defeat and expect victory. Boom, right there. So much power. Write it down and put it in your office. Because you can't talk badly about yourself and expect to feel fulfilled, right? So how do we get around that? How do we build our confidence as midlife women around self-affirmations? I'm strong. I'm healthy. I am confident. Create your I am greatness statements. Take a moment to jot them down. Put them in your nightstand next to you. Put them in your handbag. Put them on your mirror. Wherever you want to put them in those quiet moments, reflect on those. Believe those because you are strong and you are healthy and you are beautiful. Treat yourself as your guest of honor. Talk to yourself with kindness and love and respect. You know what? Fear is ever present for us. And confidence is going to wax and wane and ebb and flow. We know that. But you know what? Through the power of self-reflection and self-reliance and self-affirmations, you can continue to grow and challenge yourself in new ways. You are the history of your life. Remember that. You are the history of your life, and you are the keeper of those stories. You are the hero of your story. I want you to transport yourself back to that point where we started this conversation today. Back to that point at that pool. And I want it to be that hot summer day. Close your eyes if you have to, and picture yourself there. And you walk in and you see that diving board, and you head right over. And you get there, and your heart is racing a little bit, but you're excited. You're feeling confident. And you run or walk up that ladder to the very top. You don't even look down. You don't even hesitate. And when you get to the top of that ladder and at the back point of that high dive, I can feel it. Mine was aqua blue. I don't know what color yours was, but mine was aqua blue. And you hold onto those railings on the side. You take a deep breath and you let yourself go, and you run full force, just like you did as that fearless 10-year-old, and you jump off and you wrap your arms around your legs. Uncomfortable? Heck yeah. Ugly? Absolutely. You have to start ugly. It doesn't have to be perfect. It may warrant a trip to the chiropractor or a yoga class afterwards, but you're doing it. And as you enter that water, you make this impressive splash. And when you come up, you take a deep breath. You simply say, "Look at me now. Look at me now." I so appreciate your time today, ladies. You know what? We are in this together. We are midlife women, and we are a community that thrives. I have found that through my podcast and through interviewing inspiring women every single week, and men. I'm about to launch season 2. I would love to hear from you. If you have a story that you want to share, send me an email, amy@fearlesslyfacing50.com. 50 is spelled out. I also offer a series of different programs. One is a mentorship program that I encourage you to check out. You can go to my website, fill out the preliminary paperwork, and I will be in touch with you to further that discussion. I also offer a intro to podcasting workshop, which is so great because it's about finding your voice. And even if it's not about starting a podcast, maybe it's about starting a blog or a business. It's a great workshop to identify your who and your where and your why. And I encourage you to check it out. Everything is on my website, www.fearlesslyfacing50.com. 50 is always spelled out. I would love for you to follow me on Instagram. It's amy.k.schmidt, my author name, amy.k.schmidt, and it's SCHMIDT, the German way. Facebook, Fearlessly Facing 50. You can find me there. And I have a great group that is just exploding by the day. I started it a couple of months ago. I encourage you to join. It's called Cannonball, Make Your Splash with Confidence. It's an engaging group of women. And we talk about all of these things that we encompass as midlife women. So thank you for sharing your time with me. I am so honored and humbled. And as I always say, go forth and be awesome. Take time for yourself to self-reflect and create your highlight reel so that you can go to the top of that diving board and cannonball with confidence. Thank you.